There's a guy in almost every martial arts gym. You know exactly who I'm talking about. He's been training for 2 years, he knows the techniques, he has decent fundamentals, but he hasn't actually improved in 8 months, and nobody can figure out why, including him. The reason is almost always the same thing, and it has nothing to do with talent, athleticism, or time on the mat. It's ego, and it is quietly destroying more martial artists than bad coaching ever will. How ego shows up in training. Ego in martial arts doesn't always look the way you expect. It's not always the guy talking about how tough he is. Sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it looks like always choosing weaker training partners so you always win. Always going harder than the session calls for because you can't stand being controlled. Refusing to drill basics because basics feel beneath you. Getting frustrated when a beginner catches you with something clean, and then going way too hard for the rest of the round to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's ego, and every single one of those behaviors stops you from learning. Why ego kills skill development. Here's the mechanics of why ego is so destructive. Skill development requires failure. It requires being in positions you can't handle yet, so you can figure out how to handle them. It requires getting caught, getting swept, getting countered, and sitting with that discomfort long enough to understand what went wrong. Ego makes that process impossible. The moment your ego is threatened, your brain stops being a student and starts being a competitor. Instead of asking, why did that work against me? You start asking, how do I make sure that never happens again? Instead of exploring the position, you muscle out of it. Instead of learning, you survive. And surviving feels like training, but it isn't. Surviving is just managing your ego at the expense of your development. The best fighters in the world have one thing in common. They are genuinely comfortable being bad at things. They will sit in a terrible position for minutes trying to understand it when their ego is screaming at them to escape. That comfort with discomfort is not a personality trait. It's a skill, and it's one that most people never develop because ego gets in the way first. The sparring trap. Sparring is where ego does its most damage, because sparring has a winner and a loser in every exchange, and ego cannot accept being the loser. So instead of using sparring as a laboratory, most people use it as a scoreboard. Every round becomes a competition. Every clean shot landed against you becomes a problem to solve with aggression, not with technique. The result is sparring that looks intense but teaches almost nothing. The fighters who improve the fastest in sparring are the ones who are genuinely unbothered by getting hit, not because they don't feel it, but because they're more interested in the information than the outcome. That clean shot that landed on you is data. Ego throws the data away. Curiosity studies it. How to actually fix it. The solution is not complicated, but it requires honesty. Start choosing harder training partners on purpose. Not every session, but regularly. Put yourself in positions where you are clearly the lesser fighter in the room and train there deliberately. When you get caught with something, stop. Ask your partner what they did. Repeat the position. Let them do it again. Understand it before you try to defend it. Treat tapping, losing a round, getting swept as information, not as failure. The tap is not a loss. The tap is the moment you learned where your limit currently is. Ego tells you that being caught means you're weak. Discipline tells you that being caught means you found the next thing to work on. The fighters who remove ego from their training don't just get better faster. They become the kind of training partner everyone wants in the room, because they make everyone around them better too. Leave the ego at the door. I'll see you in the next one.